Section 2.2 is called the multiplication property of equality. And the multiplication principle says if both sides of the equation are multiplied by the same non-zero number, then the results on both sides are equal in value. So all it's telling me here is that if A equals B, if those two numbers are the same, then C times A is going to be equal to C times B. Okay? So let's take a look at what we're doing here. Directions say to solve. Remember, what we're solving, we're trying to get the letter all by itself, right? Because we're dealing with equations, every one of these problems is going to have an equal sign. So the first problem here says, let's solve 1/5 x equals 12. What we're trying to do, we're trying to get the letter by itself. We're trying to get rid of that number 1/5. The way we can get rid of the number 1/5 is to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 5/1. So I'm going to put a 5/1 over here as well. Now the reason why I want to do that, I'm going to show you sort of in slow motion what's going to happen. If we were to multiply straight across, we'd end up with 5/5 with an x. I can go ahead and think about that as 12/1. That's going to give me 60/1. Now, this 5 here and that 5 there would divide out, give me a 1x, or just an x, equals 60 divided by 1 is just 60. Okay? The reason why we're multiplying by the reciprocal is so that this number here can cancel with that number there, and this number here can cancel with that number there. And notice when we divide them out, the number we're left with is a 1, and 1 times x is just x. That's getting us our letter by itself, okay? So look, let's try the next one. We're going to go about it the same way. I'm going to multiply here by 9/1. Guys, since I already have a whole number here, I'm thinking about 9/1 is the same thing as 9, okay? Now remember, this number here and that number there will divide out. So will those. Our x will be by itself. And if we multiply -8 times 9, that leaves us with the number -72. All right. Let's do the same thing here. Again, I want to think of that x over 12. If it helps, I can think about it as a 1x over 12. So I'm looking at 1/12. Remember, my reciprocal is going to be 12/1. Since this is already an integer, I'm going to go ahead and just multiply it by 12. So this 12 and that 12 will cancel. That one and that one will cancel. There's my x. And if we multiply straight across, -7 times 12 leaves us with a -84. Same thing for the next one here. Let's think about that as a 1/6 with an x. So the reciprocal of 1/6 would be 6/1. Remember, we're multiplying. Since, again, that's already an integer, I'm just going to multiply it by 6. I don't have to do a fraction. So this 6 here and that 6 there will cancel. That one there and that one there will cancel. Okay. When we multiply here, -2 times 6 is a -12. All right. Taking a look at the next problem here, we have 15x equals 60. Remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the x by itself. So when I think about that problem there, guys, 15x really means 15 times x equals 60. And so I want to do the opposite of multiply. Well, the opposite of multiply is just to divide. So those 15s would cancel. Here's my x. 60 divided by 15 just gives us 4. The next one, we'll do it the same way. Let's think about this for a minute. 46 equals 2x, which is really 2 times x. We'll go ahead and divide both sides by 2. Those 2's will cancel. 46 divided by 2 leaves us with 23. All right. Let's try the next one here. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. The number in front of my x is a 21. I'm going to divide both sides by 21. So those 21's will cancel. Here's my x. Now, I know 21 doesn't go nice and neat into -35. But we can reduce those fractions. We can divide them both by 7. 7 goes into 35, 5. 7 goes into 21, 3. Because we have a negative, we don't want to forget it. Okay? (2x) equals negative 0.36. Let's go ahead and divide both sides by 2. Okay? Those x's there will cancel. I'm going to grab my calculator right here. I'm going to clear it out. 0.36. We are now dividing it by 2. 0.18. Okay. Looking at the next problem we have here, we have 32 divided or equals a negative x. And thinking about that problem there, what I want us to realize is it says 32 equals negative x. I can think about that as negative 1 times x, okay? So remember, it said the opposite of multiply is to divide. We're going to divide both sides by a negative 1, okay? So remember, when we're dividing by negative 1, we're really saying, what's 32 divided by 1? Well, it's still 32, but a positive divided by a negative is a negative number. Okay? All right, let's try the next one here. We're going to divide both sides by the number negative 18. Negative 18. So that negative 18 and that negative 18 will divide out. I'm going to grab my calculator right here. I'm going to take 108. Now I want you to notice something. We have a negative divided by another negative. Well, I know a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so I'm not even going to worry about putting my negatives here. Divided by 18, and we come up with 6. Okay. All right. Do the same thing here for this one. Let's divide both sides by 2.5. Okay. Those 2.5s are going to cancel out. I'm going to grab my calculator one more time. Let's see, let me clear this out. 0.5 divided by 2.5 equals 0.2. All right. Let's try the same thing here with the next one. Let's divide both sides by a negative 4.7. So those negative 4.7s will cancel out. I'm going to grab my calculator again. I'm going to clear it. And again, the first thing I want you to notice is that we're taking a negative divided by another negative. So I know a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So let's just divide it out by 4.7 equals, nice and neat, we come up with the number 3. Right? So let's try these next couple that we got here. I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by negative 6. Okay. Those are going to cancel. I'm going to grab my calculator again. Let's clear this. 2.16 divided by a negative 6 equals negative 0.36. Okay. Let's try the same thing here. Let's divide both sides by negative 39. So a negative divided by negative is a positive. Now, I know I can't divide that out, but we can reduce them. Okay? If you grab your chart, you can actually divide both those numbers by 13. 13 goes into 26 twice. 13 goes into 39 3 times. Because we have a negative, we're going to make it negative. Now, guys, I want to point something out. The negative's on the bottom. You want to keep it on the bottom? That's perfect. If you'd like to write it with the negative simply in front, that is fine too. If you prefer writing the negative on the top, that is also fine. As long as we have only one negative, whether it's at the bottom and the top or right here in the middle, all those mean the same thing, okay? And let's try the next one we got here. So let's divide both sides by a negative 2.8. Negative 2.8. So my y is now by itself. I grab my calculator. Remember, a negative divided by another negative is positive. So let me just clear this out. 3.0 8 divided by 2.8, 1.1. Okay, so for the next problem we have here, 5x plus 4x, let's add those together. Now we have a 9x equals 36. We can go ahead and divide both sides by the number 9 so that we get the x by itself. And 36 divided by 9 just leaves us with 4. I'll do the same thing here for the next problem. 3x minus 9x. Remember, I have $3, but I owe you 9. Well, I still owe you 6. Okay. Equals 18. Let's go ahead and divide both sides by the number negative 6. Okay. So 18 divided by 6 is 3, but a positive divided by a negative is a negative, so we end up with negative 3. And the next problem, 1/5 x equals negative 4. So just like we did before, we're going to say, what's our reciprocal of 1 over 5? Well, it's a 5 over 1. We're multiplying. Because this is already an integer, I'm just going to multiply it by 5. I don't have to put the 1, right? So this 5 here and that 5 there will cancel. That 1 there and that 1 there will cancel. X equals negative 4 times 5 is a negative 20. And that is section 2.2.